Ayan na mga kameta. Kamusta kayo dyan? Kamusta kayo dyan? Marami tayong pag-usapan. Hindi na yung showbiz tama na yung showbiz na yan. Medyo mag-time out na tayo dyan. Pagod na ako dyan sa mga showbiz. Ang dami mga defensive, ang dami mga dismissive. Ayan, tayo pang yayabangan. Ayan, ayoko na. Parang, hindi, gusto ko naman mamaya papatulan ko ulit. But we have more important things, more real important things to talk about. At ito po yung mga latest development sa ating rehiyon, especially the major defense deal na na-finalize po ng tatlong malaking bansa, no? Makapangyarihan na bansa. Ito po ay United States, ito po ay United Kingdom at Australia. So three Anglophone allies, medyo may sariling military commonwealth sila. So kahapon po, or actually hours ago dun sa San Diego, California. Shoutout naman dyan sa mga cousins, relatives, tito natin dyan sa San Diego. Nagkaroon ng major meeting doon at kung saan is good. Anyway, mga kameta, pag-usapan natin yan because this is very important. What we need to understand is that dito sa ating rihon, multiple important things are happening simultaneously, no? So two trilateral alliances are essentially coming into being, no? Yung isa is the Australia, United States, UK or AUKUS trilateral alliance, and the other one mga kameta is yung tinatawag na, or pwede natin tawagin na Japan, Philippines, US or JAPHUS Security Alliance. These two are extremely important. No? Both of them are very important. And both of them in one way or another have to do something directly with what's happening sa Taiwan. Because there's really a lot of concerns mga kameta na magkakaroon ng gyera dyan sa Taiwan in the near term, in the short term. We don't know how short term or near term this is going to be. Some are going to say 2025. Some are saying as early as 2024 if yung Taiwan sa next presidential elections ay nag-elect ng isang leader na mas aggressive, mas radical at mas pro-independence na gusto niya mag-declare talaga ng total independence from China. And some would say, well, at least we have maybe a decade so that we can make necessary preparations here. No? So ito po yung meeting kahapon. So in response to the possibility of war over Taiwan, so makikita niyo dun sa map mga kameta, no? At so at the very center of the map, makikita niyo yung Pilipinas. You can see how important the Philippines is. It's exactly smack in the center of this geopolitical theater, no? Very important theater. This showdown in the so-called Western Pacific and the so-called First Island Chain. So yung First Island Chain mga kameta goes from Okinawa regions in southern Japan all the way to Taiwan Straits, and then goes to the West Philippine Sea or South China Sea mga kameta. So po, ito yung napakamahalaga na theater, no? So yung mga ibang US allies from the outsides, including Australia in the so-called second island chain covering Philippine Sea, Benham Rise, going all the way to the South Pacific, and then kasama din dyan ang United Kingdom dahil may mga territories din ng United Kingdom dito sa Pacific region. So all of these three are coming together. Pero para sa akin mga kameta, ang mahalaga din pag-usapan natin is the other trilateral alliance that is coming together, no? Ito yung sabi ko nga JAPHUS, no? Japan, Philippines, United States. These three are coming together. And again, tingnan niyo yung mga map mga kameta, no? Kung i-zoom in niyo yung map, makikita niyo talaga yung Taiwan po ay exactly sa gitna ng Pilipinas and Japan. And of course, Japan extends all the way down, no? So Senkaku, Diaoyu Islands, so and Okinawa. So if you look at the distance between Okinawa and Senkaku Islands, particularly yung southernmost tip of Japan, no? And then Taiwan, and then titignan mo, hindi na makikita dito, pero titignan mo for instance yung Mavulis and Fuga Island, no? Yung pinaka-northern islands natin sa Isabela. Both of them are roughly around 100 nautical miles away from Taiwan's shores. So one from the north in the case of Japan and one from the south in the case of the Philippines. And then, katulad ng sinabi natin, the Philippines is exactly in the middle of this map. So you have Australia below, right? You have Japan there. You have Thailand, Indonesia here, and then China here, and then sa Philippines is exactly in the middle. No, exactly in the middle. And that's why napakamahalagang Pilipinas. Our geography, once again, is extremely crucial to determining the future of the Indo-Pacific region and the future of the most believe, inevitable showdown between China and the United States. Magkakaroon talaga ng showdown yan. We just don't know how violent and how early this showdown is gonna be because wala pa tayong high-tech warfare between two superpowers, no? In fact, wala tayong direct war between two superpowers for almost 100 years. The last time we had direct war among superpowers, mga kameta, was Second World War. Since then, because of invention of nuclear weapons and more advanced, versions of weapons of mass destruction, we never saw two major powers going head to head. But now, many are saying that this is almost inevitable. Now, I don't agree, I don't believe in inevitability, but the probability is increasingly higher. Siguro it was 20% 10, 20 years ago. Now it's at least 40% chance, no? But still, there's more chance than not in terms of avoiding this conflict. But sabi nga nila, di ba, you have to be prepared. You have to be prepared. And kung maalala niyo mga kameta, nakausap natin si Ambassador Romualdez, nakausap natin siya ukol sa issue ng Taiwan, at sabi niya, we cannot choose our geography. Andyan yung Taiwan, at aliado natin ang Amerika, hindi tayo pwede maging neutral dito. Kahit pa neutral tayo, talagang apektado tayo dyan if God forbid, a war breaks out. So the best thing to do for peace to be sustained, or for the peace to break out and end the crisis, is to deter China. And to deter China, you need to double down in these alliances. So katulad ng sinabi natin, on one hand, of course mga kameta, the big news today is the AUKUS. So let me go a little bit to the AUKUS. Let's discuss it very shortly mga kameta. So this AUKUS is quite controversial. There were some very negative reaction to it, including from NATO allies, especially Europe. So ito pa yung meeting kahapon na sinasabi natin mga kameta, kung saan nag-meet si Biden, right? Rishi Sunak, Prime Minister of UK, on the right side, and on the left side, of course, Albanese, si Prime Minister ng Australia. So you have three leaders, two prime minister, one president, meeting there in San Diego, which is of course a major naval base dun sa mga, of course, mga kameta natin na nakapunta sa Amerika at may mga relatives katulad natin dun sa San Diego. This is a major naval base, of course. So dun nagkaroon ng meeting, at ang pinag-usapan dito mga kameta fundamentally is this, no? They want to develop advanced submarines and share those submarines, especially with Australia. And we're talking about not just any kind of submarines, mga kameta. We're talking about nuclear-powered submarines. Now, this is very important to emphasize, mga kameta. When we say nuclear-powered submarines, these are different from nuclear submarines. Because when you say nuclear submarines, generally, ang tinutukoy natin dito is submarines that can launch nuclear weapons. No? Yun yung tinatawag na triad capability. So the ability to launch nuclear weapons or missiles from land, from air, or from seas. And one of the options for having seaboard nuclear capability is through submarines, mga kameta, no? But this is not going to be a nuclear submarine in a sense of carrying nuclear missiles and weapons. It's going to be powered by nuclear energy. Gets nyo ba? So actually, it's technically speaking, civilian nuclear technology driven military hardware, right? So it's not a military hardware that carries nuclear weapons. Alright? Now, this is very important because mga kameta, dito sa ASEAN, meron tayong tinatawag na SHANFEZ, no? Yung Southeast Asian region, nuclear weapons free zone, SHANFEZ, no? That's how we put it. Hindi ko alam kung sinong henyong nag-isip ng acronym niyan. Medyo weird na basahin yan. But we have this, mga kamete. Ilabas natin dito. So that's why it's very important for Australia to make sure na hindi ito nuclear weapons carrying, because that will be problematic if, and almost certainly, these submarines kasi Australia yung bibigay dito kasi meron naman ng UK at saka US No, so let me just show you this agreement. Southeast Asian Nuclear Weapons Free Zone. Okay, nuclear weapons free zone. Para lang alam niyo yung pinag-usapan natin. So you can actually find this on the website of ASEAN. No? Ito, Southeast Asia Nuclear Weapons Free Zone. No? Post natin dito mga kameta para ma-appreciate yun na. Again, this is very important distinction because marami mga pro-Tatay, pro-China, whatever side dyan na tinitwist nila yung katotohanan dito. No? Or they will try to twist this. No? So, sorry, it's absolutely correct that, we have a no nuclear weapons policy. Kaya nga may problema tayo sa Amerika or mga ibang bansa na dati naglalagay ng mga nuclear stockpile or nuclear waste dito. At we have some serious concerns about that. We can have a separate meta over that, mga kameta. But, so, here in Southeast Asia, meron tayong natinatang Southeast Asian Nuclear Weapons Free Zone, right? Kung saan, so this was signed in December 1996 by ASEAN member states. So it's a commitment to preserve the Southeast Asian region as a region free of nuclear and other weapons of mass destruction. The treaty is also known as the Bangkok Treaty because it's a Bangkok yan na sign. Through this treaty, ASEAN reaffirms the importance of the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons, NPT, in preventing the proliferation of nuclear weapons and contributing toward international peace and security. It also marks the establishment of nuclear weapons-free zone in Southeast Asia, one among 5 NWFZs in the world. The other 4 are in Latin America, Caribbean, South Pacific, Africa, and Central Asia. So the protocol for the Shanfest Treaty welcomes the signing and ratification of nuclear weapons states, which will contribute to the promotion of realization of Southeast Asia. So essentially, ang sinasabi natin dito mga kameta is, yung mga may malalaking nuclear weapons, huwag kayo pumunta dito, huwag kayong magulo dito, huwag niyong dalhin yung mga nuclear weapons niyo dito, whether to submarines, to warships, and to bombers, etc. Now, whether ang China ay nakikinig, ibang usapan yan, because China also has nuclear weapons-carrying submarines. Alright? But what we're talking about here, mga kameta, is nuclear-powered submarines. And ang kahalaga ng nuclear-powered submarines is, unlike diesel or fossil fuel-driven submarines, they can go for a very, very long time. Kasi yung nuclear technology, di ba? Iba siya. It can constantly generate energy for an extended period. And hindi naman forever, but kasi andun naman yung crew, di ba? Hindi naman yung pwedeng crew, hindi lang malabas forever. But parang for a very long time, they can sustain it. More than 2 to 3 times the average of what the diesel-powered submarine is. And it's much more quiet, much more quiet. And it's much more stealthy. So it's very, very advanced. So kumbaga, ito yung F-35, no? Kung sa aeroplano, ito yung F-35 version, di ba? Kumbaga, Australia wants to go from F-16s or F-18s to F-35s. This is what we're looking at. Although, of course, they have the F-35. So, now, there are 2 options here. So, one option, mga kameta, is for Australia, kasi it's the junior ally here, for Australia to get either the Virginia-class submarine. So, this is the US one. I think US has 3 dozens of this, if I'm not mistaken. No, so this is huge, solid yan. And it's considered parang kumbaga, ito po yung Ferrari of submarines in the world. No? So this is the Virginia-class submarine. The length is 115 meters, 375 feet. Ayan, zadi na tayo. So, tignan niyo, you can look at the specs here, mga kameta. Pinost natin mga specs dito, very important. The other one, of course, is slightly smaller one, or more than slightly, only 97 meters compared to 115 meters. And not as sophisticated, but still very sophisticated one is Astute class of UK. So, ang tanong dito is, before the meeting kahapon ng itong mga tatlong leaders na yan, the question was, which one is Australia gonna get? Is it gonna get the Virginian class? Is it gonna get the Astute class? Interestingly, what happened was that the decision was to develop a new generation submarine altogether, building on the existing platforms of the United Kingdom. No? So, ito ay magiging Rolls-Royce cutting-edge powered submarine. And the submarine, I think, is expected to come on board in 20 years almost, right? So, by 2040s. Now, sa military affairs, may tinatawag na intermediate capabilities. So, that means, habang naghihintay tayo ng darating yung mga new submarines, anong gagawin ng Australia? Because pinapa-retire na nila yung mga luma nilang submarines na ginawa towards the end of the Soviet Union and Cold War era. So one of the things that they looked at, and this is why this meeting in San Diego was very important, mga kameta, is because the US, you see, US, yes, may allies siya, pero the US, at the end of the day, there are certain things they don't share to allies. So for instance, the F-22 fighter, guys, is a 5th-generation fighter that only US uses. The F-14 fighter, you may be familiar with that, sa Top Gun, etc., they only shared it with one country, but this country turned out to become America's enemy later on. Of course, it's in the Middle East, right? So F-14 was really just shared with one country, that's it. The F-35 5th-generation fighter was developed so that they can share a 5th-generation fighter technology with a lot of countries, but not the core element with everyone. Kaya nga Turkey lumabas, and Turkey made its own, fighter jet project. So what we're looking at, mga kameta, dito is something very, very interesting, because the US right now is really revisiting its policy. Because for a very long time, even the closest allies were not able to enter, certain areas of Virginian-class submarines, because it's a very advanced technology dun sa propeller side, towards the end side. Parang off-limit yan sa even the closest allies, etc. No? But now, under this new deal, mga kameta, they're looking at the possibility of selling at least 3 up to 5 or 6 Virginia-class submarines over the next decade so that by 2030s, meron ng advanced submarines ng Australia. So some big things are happening dito, mga kameta. Very interesting. Very big things are happening here. So that clearly shows mga kameta that the United States is really reconsidering some of its major national security policy, especially restrictions on technology transfer. Because at the end of the day, the US will still primarily think about itself more than anyone else. Allies are there to augment America's position and its version of international security. But now the US is showing its willingness to even literally share its most advanced submarines. So some Americans ay medyo nagreklamo, may kaibigan tayo dyan sa Twitter kung saan nagreklamo sila na, wait lang, parang problematic ito because baka yung US naman ang magkakulang ng submarines kasi ilang lang, they only have 3 or 4 dozens of that Virginia class and then they're gonna give 3 or 5 of that to the Australians, and then paano kung sila mismo kailangan nila yun. So that's gonna be an interesting debate for quite some time. But in the meantime, Australia is putting aside close to $300 billion over the next 2 decades to develop the next generation ones and acquire also new submarines, nuclear submarines from America. So the Virginia class in the meantime, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then they're gonna go for the next generation platform based on the Astute class, the British class based on Rolls-Royce technology. That's what they're gonna look at. No, so very interesting, because what Australia wants to do is to be able to project power on a sustained basis in your face level, way beyond the immediate shores of Australia, way beyond South Pacific, well into the South China Sea, potentially Taiwan Straits, Philippine Sea, among others. So this has direct implications sa ating mga kameta, because again, look at our geography. We're smack right in the middle of this theater, right? This very important theater. So you can look at it. So, and of course, if Australia is gonna send mga kameta yung kanilang submarines, they'll have to pass through Southeast Asia. Unless they want to go from the other side ng pagganon, of course they can do that. But a lot of the sea lanes, so you can see here in the picture, mga kameta, yung sea lanes passes through Indonesia, Celebes Sea, Sulu Sea, Malacca, whatever, and then goes through southern Philippines, and then goes up to the Philippine Sea, going towards Taiwan, etc. So these are very busy, important sea lines of communications, no? And a lot of this will, so in short, mga kameta, ASEAN will be front and center here because we're kind of in the middle of this, right? In the case of the Philippines, we're more than in the middle of this. We're already on the front line. And we're on the front line in coordination with Japan and the United States. So you have 2 trilaterals coming in. One trilateral alliance or tripartite alliance, AUKUS, Australia, UK, US. That's pretty well developed, institutionalized one, high level ng technology sharing ngayon. The second one, not as developed yet, still a tripartite security framework is being worked out. I call it JAPHUS para lang medyo masabay niya yung AUKUS. So Japan, Philippines, United States. So the JAPHUS one, mga kameta, the JAPHUS one, it may not have the kind of the firepower and the publicity stunts that we see with AUKUS or the nuclear submarine, all of those stuff. But it's very important because, as I said, tignan nyo, napakalapit ang Japan and Pilipinas sa Taiwan. And obviously, Philippines is also on the front line when it comes to the South China Sea issue, right? And of course, Japan also has its own direct problems with China over Senkaku Diaoyu in the East China Sea. So we're directly at the very front line. So this alternative trilateral is also something going to be very important. And while the submarine for Australia will be coming in the next 20 years, a war could happen over Taiwan in the next 2 years, right? Or actually next year, if ever Taiwan goes and elects a crazy person and provokes China and all of that, right? Although I don't want to do victim blaming because at the end of the day, the threat is coming from China, not from Taiwan, right? So let's look at this. So what I'm arguing, kung titingnan niyo yung article natin sa Center for Strategic International Studies, by the way, I write everywhere, right? So don't try to say, I don't write one. I've been published with the Chinese, with the Russians, everyone has published me, all right? I write every different places because, wala naman tayo, we're just looking at analysis, facts, and different angles. And of course, I also write for South China Morning Post, right? Which is based in Hong Kong, right? So anyway, this article, please check this out because this is where I discuss more and more the trilateral, right? Especially under Marcos Jr. Because what's happening here, mga kameta, is Philippines and Japan together with the US are coming together. In fact, what's happening here is that all of these trilateral alliances are converging, again, at different levels, at different pace, at different level of institutionalization. But the ultimate idea here, mga kameta, is yung tinatawag na integrated deterrence. No, the term for that, mga kameta, is integrated deterrence. The idea is very simple. Hindi kailangan ng Amerika na one-on-one niya yung mga i-one-on-one niya yung mga Chinese. Because actually, if you look at it, China has an advantage over US dito sa region natin because this is their region, this is their backyard. They can concentrate all of their forces here, much of their naval capability, while US is dispersed all around the world. And if you use purchasing power parity, actually China has as much defense spending as, I mean, not as much, but similar levels, at least 2/3 defense spending as US, but the regional, so they can concentrate it. I'll just show you some data so that you can see where I'm coming from, mga kameta. So this is the concept of integrated deterrence. It's very important. The idea is that you work together with your allies, right, to deter deter China, sorry. I just need to bring this out para ma-appreciate mo yung sinasabi natin na how powerful actually China is. If you look at just China's ability to go on parang face-to-face with US in our region alone. So this is a very interesting graph that I'll show you, mga kameta, just for you to see how, hindi pichugin talagang China. Malakas talagang China, in fairness. And they're really, really developing their capabilities. Kaya nga, ang US ay hindi nagre-rely sa sarili lang. They're working through a network of alliances, which China doesn't have. Like, who are allies of China, really? Like, Russia is already bogged down there. They're like, kawawa, I mean, like, bugbog na bugbog sila dan. Who else? North Korea? No, I don't think so. I was in North Korea a few years ago. They're not really, inis na inis sila sa China kasi over-dependence. So this is actually the actual spending. So if you use the purchasing power parity, China and United States defense spending overall are not that different, right? So the lower one you can see there, that's the nominal, which is around 200 billion. But you use purchasing power parity, it could be 400 billion up to 600 billion, right? Or even more. In fact, there's a lot of secret spending that we're not very aware of. So China is big in terms of theirs. So US is not, diba? Hindi naman sila foolish na i-one-on-one lang nila. Bakit namin i-one-on-one? Meron naman kayong mga aliado dito who also have concerns with China. So that's where, guys, etong JAPHUS comes in the picture. Japan, US, Philippines. So JAPHUS is there on top, and then AUKUS is coming from below, and then the idea is that these trilaterals can work together. Now, I didn't mention the Quad because that's important, because Quad very much relies on India. But India has a very, very different outlook on the world. They want a multipolar world. They want to be one of the pillars of power. They don't want to be part of a US plan. They also have a very great relationship with Russia, but they have problems with China. So there's some overlap with the US and all, but not that much on other areas. While Philippines is a US ally, Japan is a US ally, UK is a US ally, Australia is UK's ally, and then Philippines is developing VFA with Japan, already has a status of forces, visiting forces agreement with Australia, and who knows what's in the works with UK and other countries. So this is the fascinating picture we're looking at, mga kameta. And that's why, really, these are huge things that are happening in our region, and we have to really pay attention to these things. Anyway, parang daldal natin. I hope. Wait, nasan na tayo? Nasan na yung aking studio? Wait lang. Nawala na. Anyway, andyan pa ba kayo? Let me check. What's going on here? Pasensya, mga kameta. Parang, ayan, nawala ba yung ano natin? Okay. Anyways, thank you very much, mga kameta, for checking us here. So this is the situation that we're trying to really break down. Medyo mahina yata ang internet ko dito. So I really appreciate dun sa mga kameta na nanonood sa atin. I really, really appreciate it. You're very, very kind of you for watching us, for checking us out. Hindi ko malabas dito, but let me check some of the comments here, diretso from here. But I hope you see the value. Don't worry, I'm gonna post some of our articles on this issue. Again, yeah, see, I enjoy this kind of discussion. Wala ko ng time dun sa mga kachipang na discussions and all of that. I mean, we're trying to just help the country. I give advice, etc., etc. Tapos kung ano na sasabihin ng mga trolls na yan. But anyway, that's who I am. Sometimes you have to ruffle some feathers in order to get a discussion going. But anyway, let's park that muna. Mamaya natin pag-usapan ng K-pop, teleserye, etc. This is serious, guys. This is serious, no? I don't think anyone else has really mentioned this as openly, but I'm the first one who's saying two trilaterals are coming together and converging. AUKUS, JAPHUS. Fascinating. very interesting. So let's see how China is going to respond. But let's also discuss siguro next time mga kameta also how the other ASEAN countries are going to respond. Although most of them are not going to be too relevant to this. I mean, not everyone's going to be a star in the show, right? There are going to be a few stars, and that's really what matters. But obviously Indonesia is going to make some noise. But the one I'm really watching here is Singapore, because Singapore has a lot of defense agreements and is giving a lot of defense access, naval access to Americans, also the British, etc. So Singapore will also be part of this discussion, something that we have to discuss a lot. And katulad na alam niyo, of course, Singapore became very important to the US nung lumalis ang mga Amerikano sa Pilipinas after yung Subic Bay bases were closed for permanent bases to the United States. So anyway, let me say very much thank you sa inyong lahat. Mamaya na tayo mag K-pop, J-pop. Maraming salamat kay Ma'am Jocelyn Lomberia as always, kay Michael Uy. Hindi, I don't agree lesser bad versus lesser good eh. In the same way, I don't agree is good versus... Let's be very clear about it, alright? Sabi nga ni Romualdez, diba? Ano bang gusto natin? Diba? Do we want to be part of a free and democratic world? Imperfect, problematic, sure. Or we want to be kind of, alam nyo na this, connect the dots, diba? And at the same time, as I said, this is the game of deterrence. The idea is that kung malakas tayong lahat, malakas yung mga alyansa natin, magdadalawang ising ng China. Because ang China, rational po. Of course, they're not perfect. They can always make mistakes. We saw crazy things happen in the past. The same way, all powers, major superpowers do bullying and crazy stuff. But the thing is, the stronger you are, the harder for the other side to even contemplate actual invasion. But at the very minimum, you should be prepared. And the more alliances, cross-cutting alliances, the easier the preparation, the smoother it's going to be. In fact, there's a military doctrine there that we can discuss soon that's called distributed lethality. The idea is that you don't want to concentrate war in one theater. You want to have multiple points of intervention so that if it goes down to war, hindi concentrated yung forces of US and its allies. So you have multiple points of pushback against China, and in that sense, you make it very difficult. Nonetheless, mga kameta, we have to also discuss the day after, because a lot of war games are showing that US can, together with Philippines and Japan and some allies, especially Australia, can beat a Chinese invasion back. But the problem will be what happens when China imposes, after some initial wave defeat, total embargo on Taiwan. Then what's going to happen next? And that's where Philippines will be very important. That's where Japan will be very important. And for me, that's why the best metaphor I've seen is, non-alcoholic ako, but the term they use is cork in the bottle. So Taiwan is like the cork in the bottle. If Taiwan goes, all bets are off. All bets are off. That's why Taiwan is extremely important in terms of making sure that we keep situation together. And as I said, mga kameta, pwede natin pag-usapan yan. Taiwan is responsible for more than 1/3, 37% of global computing power. So a lot of computer chips, conductors, processors that we're using in our phones, in our laptops, etc., in our cars, especially more modern cars, EV cars, etc., a lot of that could be coming from Taiwan, right? So if Taiwan goes down or something huge happens there, bugbog ang world economy. All bets are definitely off. And by some estimate, China could see a 20 to 30% shrink in its GDP, which is huge because China's GDP is what, $10 trillion? So China could lose $2 to $3 trillion in productivity if a war happens there. US is going to see also 5 to 10% potentially recession there. So this is going to be serious. So if you want peace, prepare for war, because if you're prepared, bullies are going to blink. As simple as that. All right? Now, there's still risk of actual war, but that's why you have to be prepared, right? Either way, damay-damay yan. So better be prepared and better try to deter it than just nakamangmang ka lang dyan, nakatunganga ka lang dyan, tapos bugbog ka rin naman kung ganun. Kasi US ally pa rin tayo at ang lapit natin. So, that's what I'm saying, right? So, either you choose to end our alliance with the US or panindigan mo na yan. You cannot have it both ways. Neutrality doesn't work when you already have a treaty alliance with the US and Taiwan is just right next to you. As simple as that. Okay? Thank you very much, mga kameta. I'll keep it here. Hindi ko maloload sa phone ko eh. But again, thank you so much sa lahat ng mga nag-comment. Ayan. Thank you kay Ma'am Annie Gonzalez, kay Viv Yansu for your comments and suggestions. Ay, hindi naman suggestions. Comments lang. Next level ang formahan natin today. Bakit naman? Ano lang naman Parang pang director. Parang ang probinsyano ang Coco Martin style tayo ngayon, di ba? Sabi ni Hey Valentin, wala tayong choice. Benvenido, sabi niya, thanks Richard, of course, thank you. Nice info, sabi ni Grace. Of course, mga kameta, sinisimplify ko lang yan, di ba? So if you want a more in-depth analysis, thank you also kay Mitch Tengsho for joining us. Thank you also kay Rhea Tado joining us from United Arab Emirates. Wala tayong mga kabayan joining us from all across the world. Thank you also kay Gandara Samar, from Gandara Samar, si Yonan Oyren. Thank you for joining us also. Ayan, si Esguerra, meron siyang vote. Ay, nako, yung constitutional change, patay. Isa pang usapan yan. Balikan natin yan. Joining us from Masbate, si JV. Ayan, marami tayong mga kameta na nagmamahal sa atin dito. Kay Noy Mitablate, joining us from Quezon City. Kay Madrigal Heya, nakaka-distract po sir yung looks mo. What's that supposed to mean? Wait lang. Sige, mag-shades na lang tayo mga kameta. Alright, thank you very much mga kameta. Talk to you guys soon and God bless.